Welcome everyone. Appreciate you coming this early event that we have each year. This is the 18th annual Recovery Day breakfast and celebration, and it's held in September every year because that is National Recovery Month. So we're glad to have you join us today. My name's Kendall Nagy, and I work for the Meridian Police Department, and I've been the director of the Meridian Anti-Drug Coalition for just about 9 years now. And it's a privilege to lead dedicated members of the community and community partners in the work that we do. We have about 70 events each year that we provide prevention education at. And so it's definitely a team and community effort, and we're grateful to bring everybody together today. As we gear up for this busiest time of year in the fall, when we have many of our events and Red Ribbon Week coming up in the schools, I look forward to this event because it brings us together and it unites us and strengthens the support for those that are navigating recovery. Some of us don't have experience actually in recovery, and this event brings us together to share perspective and leaves us reflecting on how we can help those and support others that are going through that recovery journey. And I think that's important to share the perspectives of others. So I'm excited about that today. One of the ways that we work with, and by we I say MADC works with the Meridian Police Department, is that we align on the prevention efforts. Both of our missions include prevention, and so we have a lot of overlap and a lot of partnership that happens with the Meridian Police Department in our community as far as community policing and prevention as well. And so with that, we're excited to have Chief Bastarchia here to join us in this celebration and to lead us and kick us off today with the Lord's Prayer.
Thank you, Kendall. Please bow your head. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us.
And lead us
not into temptation, but deliver us from evil.
For thine is the
Kingdom, power, and
glory forever.
never. Amen.
Thank you, Chief. So 2023 marks the 34th annual National Recovery Month. And coming together this month, we celebrate recovery for every person, every family, and every community. And I think the room and the event today represents that very well. For those impacted by the disease of addiction, it's a challenging path, and coming together can help us all navigate that in whatever capacity that might be. We come together today to promote evidence-based treatment and recovery practices, support the recovery community, and honor the dedication of the service providers who work to improve the lives of those affected by mental health and substance use disorders. We are here to celebrate that people can and do recover every day. Mayor Simison is here today and has the pleasure of introducing our guest speaker. Prior to serving as the mayor of Meridian, Robert Simison served as chief of staff for 12 years alongside former Mayor Tammy DeVeard. And during that time, he helped advocate for prevention, education, and supported the mission of the Meridian Anti-Drug Coalition. It's as a father and a husband and the mayor of Meridian that Robert knows the importance of substance abuse prevention and continues to support the coalition's mission and our partners in prevention, treatment, and recovery. Please welcome Robert Simison.
Thank you, Kendall, Haley, and all those that make MADC a success by volunteering with your time for helping make this event happen each and every year along with everything else. And it's a great testament to what type of community we live in. If you look at it, we've stood up for what we think is right and wrong in Meridian. We've defined what we want to have and what we don't have when it comes to drugs, how we want to look at alcohol, its use, its abuse. But we do that with compassion as a police department when necessary. And we get the right people involved when it's important to help people get to where they need to go in life. And we support recovery. To have a organization like MADC operated through our police department that can embrace the change in people and help them be successful so they contribute, that they give back. That's really what we are here to celebrate, but it's really a reflection of our values about what's important to us as a community. I'd like to say as a state, as a city, as a region, but we'll just go with the bigger C word, community, in that case. I don't think I've missed one of these events since I've been with the city, and the stories that are here are just a reminder about, I think, and I'm going to look at our chief, a reminder about how our law enforcement officers do their job each and every day. You know, the way they treat people each time they come in to interaction with them, because they may be that first contact that's going to put someone on the right road towards recovery in a bad situation in that regards. So it does take the community. The campaign theme is great for this year, and that Kendall mentioned. And I'll just kind of stop with this. We've made a lot of investment in MADC, both from a personnel standpoint as well as additional funds for the opioid settlement to continue the mission and vision and make the connections into our schools where we put the additional school resource officers. Because frankly, it starts at every level within the city in order to help make recovery happen. So with that, I'm going to introduce our speaker this morning. Amanda Davison is Director of the Clinical Outreach for Charlie Health. She will be sharing her story of maintaining sobriety. She recently lost her partner and younger brother to suicide completion. Amanda carries a message of experience, strength, and hope. She prioritizes connections with others, emphasizing self-care, and believes that together we can do hard things. Please join me in welcoming Amanda to the stage to share her journey of recovery with us today.
Welcome, everyone. First of all, I want to thank you for being here, and I want to thank each and every one of you for what you do on a daily basis and suiting up and showing up and supporting those of us that are in recovery. Because I truly believe that I could not do this by myself. And, you know, going through a lot of recent adversity and challenges, I could not do this alone. And I have realized at a much deeper level that we can do hard things. So to tell you a little bit about myself, I am from southeastern Idaho originally. I am like the epitome of Idaho. My dad was a potato farmer. My high school mascot was a russet potato. I know it's very intimidating. But I grew up bucking hay and riding horses and driving combines and the whole 9 yards. And I grew up in an environment where I always felt very safe and very loved, and in a predominantly LDS community, which felt very safe. And I say that because, you know, I don't have a lot of childhood trauma, and that's not necessarily what my story is. And today I'm here to share my experience, strength, and hope, and what I've gone through over the last, 7 years in sobriety. So my sobriety date is June 18th, 2016. But 2 months before my 15th birthday, my mom unexpectedly passed. And we didn't know she was sick. I caught her body before she hit the floor. I did mouth-to-mouth on her. Suffered a trauma. My dad suffered from untreated bipolar. And long story short, I spent a couple years sitting on a cliff. Suicidal ideation, and drugs, boys, alcohol. Let's just say good decisions were not on my radar for a very long time. And I didn't know what was wrong with me. I didn't understand. So I drank a couple of times in high school. I'll start where the drinking began. I drank 2 times in high school. And never in my entire life have I ever had one drink. And during those 2 times that I did drink, I drank to the point that I blacked out. And it scared me. And so I thought, I'm not going to do that again. But as I got older, things changed. I spent a lot of time battling with multiple different addictions, whether that be food, whether it be drugs, boys, you name it. I wanted to make myself feel different. I hadn't really processed the death of my mother, and it took a couple decades until I landed in a room full of Alcoholics Anonymous, and it saved my life. And I was in a room with 20, 30 other people that said me too and shared my story. But to tell you a little bit about what it was like when I was drinking, my life was very unpredictable. And I lived in 1,000 forms of fear. I would sit in my bed and I would wonder, a lot of times I'd come to in the morning and I'd wonder what had happened the night before. I remember waking up multiple times and peeking out my curtain to see if my car was in the driveway, or rolling over to see who was next to me. But I mean, just complete and total chaos and insanity. And I just was harming myself continuously and not knowing why I couldn't stop. I believe that I personally have an allergy. And I'd like to read a little bit out of the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous about alcoholism. So, let's see. We believe, and so suggested a few years ago, that the action of alcohol on these chronic alcoholics is a manifestation of an allergy, that the phenomenon of craving is limited to this class and never occurs in the average temperate drinker. This allergic types can never safely use alcohol in any form. And once having formed the habit, they found they cannot break it. Once having lost their self-confidence, their reliance upon human things, their problems pile up on them and become astonishingly difficult to solve. Now, towards the end of my drinking, the last 2 years, I really wanted to stop drinking, and I could not. And my life was nothing but 24/7 thinking about alcohol, trying to figure out how I was going to get it, trying to figure out how I was going to hide it. It was an exhausting way to exist. When I got sober, my son was 9 months old and my daughter was 2 years old. And what made me want to get sober, I remember I would sit in my lazy boy every night, and I had this beautiful 9-month-old baby and this 2-year-old daughter, and I would look at them, and I would sit in my lazy boy and I would drink my box of wine. And I would think to myself, what is wrong with me? And I didn't know what was wrong with me. And I ended up going to my sister's house in southeastern Idaho in a predominantly LDS community. They were LDS. And of course, I was doing what I regularly did and had my wine in my water bottle. And I was sleeping downstairs in her basement. And my son was 9 months old at the time. And I had my sound machine on, and I thought I had shut the door, and I had passed out, and somehow my son got out of the room, and it was dark, and he was scared. And he ended up at the top of my sister's stairs screaming, and my sister came down to wake me up, and she couldn't because I was passed out. Well, I woke up the next morning, and I was like, what are we going to do today? And I had no idea what had happened the night before. And she proceeded to tell me what had happened, and she told me I needed to leave. And I drove home from Idaho Falls to Boise. And the whole way home, I just said to myself, I'm not going to drink again, I'm not going to drink again, I'm not going to drink again. And I made it 2 days. And I found myself in the grocery store buying another box of wine. And I sat in my lazy boy once again, and I cried, looking at these beautiful babies going, what's wrong with me? Why can't I stop? And I passed out, and I came to the next morning, and I went to go change my son's diaper. And I put a dry diaper over his wet diaper. And my bottom was literally bottom. And I walked over to the sink,
And I dumped out the box of wine that I had had left, which was like half a glass. And I looked in the mirror, and I was unrecognizable, and I didn't know who I was or how I had gotten to this point, but I had reached this point of incomprehensible demoralization. And when my mom passed away, I really had shut out any concept or idea of a God or a higher power. And when I looked in the mirror, I said, I don't know what's out there, but please help me. And for me, my story, my obsession was lifted. My 24/7 constant, it was like being in prison. There was nothing I could do to get rid of those obsessive, compulsive, nonstop thoughts of drinking. And that night during that blackout, I had texted my best friend and I told her I had a problem. And so after I cried out for help, I looked at my phone and saw that I had texted her. And she said, I want you to meet this girl in a parking lot and go to an AA meeting. I didn't know anything about AA. And I remember after reading that text, I sat on the edge of my bed for probably an hour, trying to get up the courage to tell my husband at the time to ask him if he would watch the kids while I went to an AA meeting. And this was on Father's Day. And so I ended up in a meeting, and I'll never forget that meeting. I walked into this meeting with 20 or 30 other people, and I heard laughter. And I listened to these people share their stories. And I heard my story, and I was like, just blown away, because there were 30 other people that were just as crazy as I was in the same room that had the same problem, that once they started to drink, they couldn't stop. But they were sober, and they were laughing. And there was so much hope, and it was the first time in years that I had hope. And so I went back, and I continued to go back. And at that point in my life, I believe we all have to be willing and get to that point where we're willing to do whatever it takes to get sober. And for me, I did all of my relapsing prior to sitting in a room full of Alcoholics Anonymous. But for me, I got in that room and I continued to go to meetings, and I got a sponsor, and I took my program very seriously, and I worked the steps, and I worked with other alcoholics, and I went to multiple meetings. I still go to multiple meetings today. I like to say I like to hang out with my flavor of crazy. And that's really what fills my cup and what keeps me sober. I have a purpose. Prior to getting sober and learning more about Alcoholics Anonymous, I didn't have purpose. And I know today that my primary purpose is to stay sober and to help other alcoholics and to be of service and to practice the principles of AA in all of my affairs. And I am so grateful that I have been given this opportunity and this gift. So as I got sober and I worked through the steps, more was revealed. And, I realized that alcohol wasn't necessarily my only problem. Now, I know that when alcohol hits my lips, all bets are off. Like, there is no stopping. Never in my life have I had one drink. But what I also know is that mine is not just a drinking problem, it's a thinking problem. And then throughout the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, the first step is admitting I was powerless over alcohol. And so I spent a lot of time writing out all of the things and the insane decisions and the actions that I had done when I was drinking. And then the second step came to believe that a power greater than myself could restore me to sanity, which was a very hard step for me because I didn't believe in a higher power. And so I had to use my mom as my higher power when I first started. through the steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. And since then, my higher power has changed. And I really don't try to define it. I just try to listen. And I do believe that all of us have a higher power within us. And I do believe that I receive a lot of messages through people, places, things, and that Alcoholics Anonymous and being free of alcohol allows me to have a conscious contact with this power that's greater than myself. And if my eyes are open and my heart is open, that there is something out there greater than myself guiding me and guiding us. So, and then the third step was turning my will and my life over to my higher power, which was also a challenge because, you know, I'm an egomaniac with an inferiority complex, and I like to run the show, you know, self-will run riot. That is one of my character defects, and selfishness and self-centeredness is the root of my problem. And that's where the fourth step came into play. And I got to write down all of the things that I had resentments against, people, places, and things, who they were, what they did to me, and then my part, which was really hard. And, you know, I really wanted to do the best job that I could, so my inventory was 72 pages long, Excel spreadsheet. And I did it to the best of my ability. And then I took it to my sponsor to do my fifth step, to go over everything that I've ever done, because I believe that I'm as sick as my secrets. And I shared all of those things with my sponsor. And as I was going through that inventory, I was so still clouded from alcohol, and my body and my brain and, you know, my synapses just were not firing correctly because I had just been poisoning my body for a couple of decades. And as I'm going through this inventory with my sponsor, she's starting to point out these patterns. And those patterns have allowed me to be aware of my choices and my decisions and my actions or reactions, I should say. And it's allowed me to make a different choice. Now, before I got sober, I don't feel like I had choices. I don't feel like I had a choice on whether I was going to drink or whether I wasn't going to drink. I just did. And getting in a group and in a group and a room full of alcoholics gave me the power to know that I had a choice and that I cannot drink just for today. And that's how it started, and that's how it had to start for me. If I can just do this just for today. And another funny part of my story. So I did get sober on Father's Day, and my dad flew out the Wednesday following Father's Day, and he flew out to help my brother Lloyd fix his Harley. And so I went to the airport to pick him up, and we pulled into the driveway, and I pulled out my first 24-hour chip, and I said, "Dad, happy Father's Day. I'm getting sober." And he just started crying, and he said, "Thank God, Amanda, because we're really here to have an intervention." My higher power has a sense of humor, so, and that was divine will and timing, because if somebody would have told me what I was going to do, I sure would have done the exact opposite thing. But I've always thought that was pretty funny, that, you know, that my dad was flying out and my whole family was there to actually have an intervention, and instead we had a beautiful time together and just, you know, talking about and making a plan for me to stay sober and have the support that I needed from my family. So, fourth step, fifth step, sixth step was, asking my higher power to remove my character defects as I took a good look at my patterns and my behaviors and my part. And then I made a list of all people that I had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. And I went through each of these individuals and I wrote letters, or I did my amends in person, and I feel so grateful and so blessed, because for me, in my situation, every single one of my amends was very receptive. And that's not always the case, but I have an opportunity to right the wrongs that I've done, because I've caused a lot of harm during my drinking. And, I have the opportunity today to make a living amends to my 9-month-old and to my 2-year-old, who are now 8 and 10. And today, it's kind of funny, we practice these principles in all of our affairs. And at my house, I ask my kids, what's your part? What's your part? How are you going to make amends? And I'm grateful for AA, because I have a design for living. AA is more than just alcoholism. It's a design for living, and it's a guide for me. And I know that no matter what is going on in my life, that I can take those principles and I can work the steps on that. And I don't know what I would do without that. So what it's like today is, when I have a question or I'm unsure, I have a relationship with whatever this thing is that's greater than myself. Not a big fan of the word God, but my higher power. And my higher power is there for me if I'm willing to ask and I'm willing to listen. And it's not always on my terms, but I know that I will be guided. And I've learned through sobriety not to drink no matter what, and to stay in the middle of the herd, and to rely on other alcoholics. I literally have probably 60 people in my phone that I could call at 2 or 3 in the morning that would show up and help me no matter what was going on in my life. There's nothing I've ever experienced like the fellowship, no religion, no group. I am so grateful for that. So fast forward up to year 7 in sobriety. This has been the hardest year for me to stay sober. Not necessarily to stay sober, but to move through some pretty big adversities. On March 7th, my partner of 5 years, who, his name was Brent Side. He was always so supportive of my sobriety, and he was an airplane pilot and a very talented welder and an airplane mechanic. And he completed suicide. And on April 7th, my baby brother Andrew completed suicide as well. And Andrew really truly is a big part of the reason why I'm alive today. For 10 years, he took care of me while I was drunk. And I guess what I'm trying to say is what I've learned in sobriety is not to drink no matter what. And that when I'm struggling, I have tools. And those tools are not only tools of AA. I also believe in getting outside help. I've done a lot of EMDR throughout my traumas. I believe in evidence-based practices. So throughout sobriety, I've had so many blessings. And one of the biggest blessings I have today is about 2 years ago. I interviewed for this job, working as a director of clinical outreach for Charlie Health. I had the ability to talk to providers and tell them about the tools that we have for kids and adults to pick up to save their own lives, these evidence-based practices. And I am so passionate about group healing. And that's essentially what they do at Charlie Health, is they put these kiddos together and 6 other people, with 6 other people that say me too. And that's what saved my life. And I always am so amazed at how things work, and that more is to be revealed. And sometimes it is hard to trust in the process, and sometimes it is hard not to want to pick up a drink and feel different. But, I've also spent a lot of time in Al-Anon and learning and working through the steps there. Because the one thing that I've learned is I am powerless over people, places, and things. And for any of you that are in relationships with someone who is an addict or an alcoholic, I know it's hard. All anyone could ever do to help me was to give me the tools. But if I wasn't willing to pick them up and I wasn't willing to change, there would never be a change. But I believe, an example of being willing to go to any lengths, to do the steps, to put in the work, and to not pick up a drink no matter what. But I'm super grateful for this opportunity that I've had today. And I hope that my story will help someone else. I feel very blessed that I get to share my story every single day. I believe, once again, that everything happens for a reason. And that all of this adversity in my life, I believe that life can happen to me or life can happen for me. And that has been a process. And really, when these things happen in my life, it is an opportunity for growth. And that is all a matter of perception and a matter of practice and a matter of speaking to somebody else and sharing my story with someone else and getting another perception or another, speaking with another alcoholic. When I'm struggling with something, I know that my first thought is wrong usually. That's what one thing that Alcoholics Anonymous has taught me. First thought wrong. Pause, asking for the right thought or action, talking to another individual or another alcoholic, and then following my guidance and my intuition. Now this morning, I was praying before I got here, and I prayed before I got up here to speak, because I believe that without my higher power, I wouldn't be alive today. And I also was talking to my partner, Brent. And I said, Brent, what do you have to say today? And I pushed play on my playlist in the shuffle, and I have hundreds of songs. And he played the song Have It All by Jason Mraz. And that's a song that he printed out for me and left in the safe after he completed suicide. And then on the drive here, I have this touchstone with his ashes. And it sits on my dash, and it's always sat on my dash. And today it fell on my lap. I just feel like my higher power is full of messages, and that we all have the ability to see these messages if we're willing to open up our hearts and open up our eyes. But the real kicker for me this morning, I don't know how this happened. I sat down to do my makeup. And sitting on my floor was this note that he wrote. And it said, I've never felt so loved by any one person in my entire life. And the only reason that that note exists is because of Alcoholics Anonymous and because of my sobriety. Because it's given me the tools to have the ability to love someone like that. So I want to show a picture to everyone of what I looked like when I was drinking. I was a mess. Oh, I was such a mess. And I felt horrible, and I looked horrible, and my face was puffy all the time, and I just was so miserable. And I remember, about a year after I got sober, and my body started to detox and cleanse. So I got sober, and I knew I couldn't stay sober if I stayed married because I was in a toxic relationship. And so got out of this toxic relationship, and my baby brother allowed me to live in his house, his 3,500 square foot house with a 3-car garage. And when I got sober, I moved out into a 625 square foot duplex in a 10 by 10 shed, and that was it. And I got rid of everything that I had, and it was so therapeutic. But I remember being happier than I've ever been in my life in this 625 square foot duplex. And I'll never forget the day, I was probably about 9 or 10 months sober maybe, and I opened up the door and I saw color for the first time because my eyes and my body were detoxed, and it's just everything was more vibrant and the grass was green. And I realized that I was starting to surround myself with color, where before my house was decorated in browns and grays, and now my house looks like an Easter basket. You know? So I just have so many blessings in sobriety. But one of the biggest blessings are the people that have been in my life that have saved my life. And I like to call them my angels in skin. And I put together this slideshow that has a lot of my angels in skin in it. So I would like to play that. connections with everyone that we cross paths with matter, and that we have the ability to make a difference in somebody's life. And this is one thing that my kids love to do. So if we're out in public, or we're at the grocery store, or the gas station, or, you know, we see somebody who looks like they're bummed out, or somebody who's been extra friendly to us, we love to give them a thoughtful, and they're little messages, and you don't know what's inside. But also, at the table, the Charlie Health table that Sabrina set up, there are rocks. And those rocks, my daughter's third grade class from Pepperidge, they painted those rocks. And I'd like each and every one of you to take one of those to remember today or to pass on to someone else. But I appreciate having this opportunity to speak today. And I hope that something I said today makes a difference. And yeah, if any of you ever have a friend or a family member or someone that's struggling, I will give out my business cards and they're welcome to call me, because I am happy to help anyone, because so many people showed up for me and helped me. I used to tease my sponsor that I should pay her cell phone bill when I first got sober. But I really truly believe that I need and would like to give back what was so freely given to me. So please don't ever hesitate to reach out. I am here. And thank you. Thank you again for this opportunity.
Wow, that was incredible. So I would just like to say some thank yous. So first, Amanda, thank you so much for sharing your story, your perseverance, your strength, your hope. It's truly inspiring to everyone here. To Mayor Simison, Chief Pastor Achia, City Council members, thank you for your continued support of the coalition. To Peep, Human Being, and Cheryl, thank you so much for the wonderful breakfast and starting our day off right. To our partners at the Meridian Gathering and Resource Center and Charlie Health for sharing resources and help promoting this event, thank you. And to all of our dedicated MADC volunteers and coalition members, this is all possible from your support, so thank you.